Hi everyone. This video is a book review about a book that I saw a couple of years ago while I was shelving at the library, and I knew that I had to have it. I knew I had to add it to my collection. And the title of this book is Martin de Porres, The Rose in the Desert, and it was written by Gary D. Schmidt and illustrated by David Diaz. Now, as I stated, I was working in the library. I don't know if this book was on my cart or if I was shelving it, but I was so mesmerized by the beauty of the illustrations, by the beauty of this story, that I put it on my Amazon list, and it's been there for about 6 or 7 years before I actually bought it. So I am so excited to share it with you. If you don't know who San Martin de Porres is, he is the patron saint of African Americans, of those of a mixed race, of universal brotherhood, of animal shelters, and just a couple of different things, because he was a very multi-talented individual. So before I get into the book, let me tell you a little bit about the author and the illustrator. So first we shall start with the author. It says, Gary D. Schmidt is the best-selling author of the Newbery Honor and Prince Honor book Lizzie Bright and the Buckminster Boy, and the Newbery Honor book The Wednesday Wars. His most recent book, Okay for Now, was a National Book Award finalist. He is a professor of English at Calvin College in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I don't know how recent this biography is. This book was published in 2012, so I do not know if he is currently a professor at Calvin College. He was born in 1957 in Hicksville, New York. He also received his degree in English in 1979 from Gordon College. Then he went to the University of Illinois of Urbana-Champaign, where he received his master's in English in 1981 and a PhD in medieval literature in 1985. I think that was pretty cool because I am an English major, but I never had any type of specialization. He, at the time, is a professor of English at Calvin College. In 1996, he was diagnosed with lymphatic cancer. And if anyone has ever been diagnosed with anything or gone through a time period of health issues, you know that it can not only influence your art or your craft, but also change your perspective of things. So he was inspired by the stories of cancer patients, and he decided to write more books targeting children and young adults as his audience. From what I've read about him, he says that he is a Christian and that he considers himself religious. I don't know which branch of Christianity he is involved in. I don't know if it's like Catholicism or something else, but keep in mind that is the author's belief system, and I think that it also influenced his book. Now, the illustrator, David Diaz, with these beautiful illustrations. So beautiful. David Diaz has illustrated numerous award-winning books for children, including Smoky Night by Eve Bunting. I love Eve Bunting. So talented. For which he was awarded the Caldecott Medal. The Wanderer by Sharon Creech, which received a Newbery Honor. And Diego Bigger Than Life by Carmen T. Bernier Grand. An illustrator and graphic designer, for more than 25 years, he is also a painter and an accomplished ceramic artist. Mr. Diaz lives in Carlsbad, California. I don't know if he is still doing or if he is currently working on any projects. I do recognize some of his work from books I read as a child, like The Wanderer. I loved that book as a child, and I didn't know he illustrated it. I also recognize some of his books from working in the bookstore. There was one, I want to say it was by, I don't know if it's a one with Rudolph or something else. But his last book that he completed and illustrating was in 2016. He was working on another book in 2018, but he got dropped from that project due to sexual or allegations of sexual harassment. That's why I don't know if he's currently working on any projects right now because of those allegations. It was just a very big deal. There were some illustrators involved. There was an organization involved. So that is the background for that illustrator. In this video in particular, I'm just going to separate the illustrator or the artist from their art. I'm not denying that these things happen because I've had situations like that where that's happened to me. So in this case, to preserve the beauty and grace of this book, I'm going to just take the art instead of the artist. Now, as I stated, this book was published in 2012 by Clarion Books, which is part of Houghton Mifflin Harcourt. The book starts off with this gorgeous look. I'm loving the hair, okay? Look at these curls. It starts off with a beautiful portrait of San Martin de Porres. I am trying to pronounce his name as correctly as possible. I do not know Spanish. It's not my first language or the language that this is in. So throughout the duration of this book, I'm just going to go by the American pronunciation of his name, which is Martin. I have heard it being like San Martin de Porres. San Martin de Porres. So I will just call him Martin for this book. It shows beautiful roses. I don't know what media this was done in. I want to say it's like a mixed media. It looks like paint or acrylic. The story begins with his mother, Ana Velasquez, taking him to the church, taking him to the place of worship to be baptized. I love this illustration because she almost looks like the Black Madonna. Now, what's interesting is Anna, when I saw this picture of her, it actually reminded me of the biblical story of Hannah, who dedicated her child, I want to say Samuel, to the church or to the temple. And Anna is Hebrew. It's originally a form of Hannah. And the translation in Hebrew means gracious, merciful. Anna was a woman. Certain sources say that she was of African descent. Others say that she was Indian. She was newly freed from enslavement, and she was from Panama. Her son, that she went to go get baptized, was the child of a Spanish conqueror named Don Juan de Porres. And Don Juan had completely abandoned the family. You know, he's just like, I don't know if she was enslaved by him or if they were somewhat involved. My best bet is like that she may have been enslaved by him and maybe assaulted by him, but I personally don't know. So she goes to the priest to get him baptized, and the priest is like, I don't really want to baptize this baby, like, because he don't have a daddy and blah, blah, blah. He doesn't have a name. He says, I baptize you, the son of an unknown father. She looks like the Virgin Mary right here. And Anna says, I will call him Martin. Now, Martin is Latin for warlike, which I think is kind of bizarre because the man that this book was about was so compassionate and so caring for other people. But his name meant warlike, god of Mars. So that is what became of his name. Anna has another child by the same dude. Yeah, by the same dude. And it's Juana. I don't know, Juana. So I don't know if it's Juana or Juana. And Juana means God is gracious in Hebrew. So because there was no support from their father, and because they were of color during this time in this environment, they lived a very poor and treacherous life. They basically lived in the slums. They lived in dire poverty. But even though they lived in these conditions, it did not affect the state of Martin's heart. Even though he was himself poor, he still had compassion for those who were less fortunate than him. He would even give the little that he had to people that he felt had less than them. His childhood environment basically inspired his future workings as he got older on his way to sainthood. So we're going to remember that. So when they're 8 years old, or when Martin is about 8, here comes his daddy. I don't know why his daddy came back. I don't know if he was going through some midlife crisis, was like, oh my God, I'm going to die alone. I got to go find my kids or whatever. You know, some guys do that. They'll be like, I have a family. I need to do something about it. So he comes to check on his kids or whatever, to see them, meet them for the first time. And he sees them living in terrible conditions. Their dad was in Ecuador, so he comes back and he takes the little girl and the little boy back with him to Ecuador. And he publicly claims them. He gives them his name to legitimize him. A lot of people didn't like that. A lot of people mocked him and gave them a hard time because they were of mixed race. But I think just that act of doing that gave them at least a bit of an easier life. Because not only did he do that, but he also gave them an education. And as you know, education is one of the fastest ways that you can raise yourself up out of poverty if you know how to utilize this tool. So when Martin was 12 years old, he was apprenticed by, as it says, cirujano, is Cirujano. So I don't know if it's cirujano or cirujano back in Lima. All of this is taking place in Lima, which is the capital and largest city of Peru. So it shows Martin learning these skills. He was a barber, and he was also like a medic, I suppose. So he learned how to cut hair, he learned how to treat wounds and all of these different things. He was a very talented child. And he also had a special gift. He had a special talent at healing people. The last shall be first. So even though he lived in this world of racist supremacy, he did not let it contaminate or poison his heart, and he did not let it dampen his gift. Because he was an open vessel for perpetual, love of God, he was able to accomplish amazing feats that these people whose hearts were poisoned by racism could not do and could not deny. So even though they were mocking him, he was healing them. It mentions in the book a couple of the miracles he performed. So Like, one of the guys he healed brought seeds of a lemon tree as a gift. And Martin and his sister scooped a hole behind their house, and he planted the seeds, and the next day a lemon tree grew with lemons hanging off of it. So people began to recognize his gift of healing. It actually reminds me of George Washington Carver, because George Washington Carver was also enslaved by the Carvers, and he had a talent with plants, working with plants, and people recognized this talent and would bring their ailing, sick plants to them, ask him questions, how do I heal this? And everything he touched would flourish because he had that gift. He had this gift of communication with nature. I feel that Martin also had this same gift, not only with like plants, but with animals as well, because throughout his life, animals would come to him as well. Animals, dogs, mice, various creatures. Another source said that he abstained from meat, which I suppose would make sense because he most likely didn't like suffering or to see suffering of any life. So when he was about 15 years old, he asked for admission to the Dominican convent of Rosary in Lima. And of course, they're like, we don't want you. You're black. I don't want you in my monastery that's so pristine that I stole the idea from you and claimed as my own, so you can't come even though you're the one that started it. I don't want you here. But that did not deter Martin. Now, at the time, in Peru, it states that descendants of Africans and Indians were not allowed to become full members of religious orders. So instead of asking to be a brother or priest or anything, he was like, can I just be a servant? I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll clean the halls, I'll wash your tunics, I'll cut your hair, I'll do anything you ask of me. Just let me in. Just let me in. I just want to be a part of this brotherhood. And I think that's kind of, I couldn't do it, but I mean, he had a heart of humility. So I'm pretty sure that even though it might have been difficult for him, his dream to become maybe a priest or at least part of this religious order was so strong that he was willing to do anything. That's like that story I read of Booker T. Washington, where he swept an entire room, he cleaned it spotless so that he could, I don't know, get a job somewhere, get a job at a school. I really don't remember. But it was that same passion that Martin possessed in himself. I also forgot to mention that this time period takes place in like the late 1500s, because Martin was born December 9th, 1579. So the priest, he's asking the priest, can he join? Like, please let me join you. I just want to join your religious order that you stole from me, please. So he's like, okay, here, get a white tunic and a black cape. So Martin begins his life in the monastery. He's doing everything that he said he would. He's sweeping the floors. He's like handling this verbal abuse from people and like criticism and disregard from other people. However, he still keeps a smile on his face. He still keeps a smile on his face. This touches my heart because like I think of people of African descent that were in this position, or like those of a mixed race that were in this position, and how they always had to consistently prove themselves to people to get the most basic things. I feel they were also jealous of Martin because I personally believed he had powers. I personally believed he had healing powers. There were some stories of him levitating. He would pray for hours. He would pray intensely. People everywhere would come to him for healings. The father, or the priest, began to hear tales. Stubborn mules in the stables stretched their necks to Martin. Pecking chickens in the hen houses begged to be stroked as he reached for their eggs. Greedy mice in the barn stopped raiding the kitchen and took grain from Martin's hand. Then Father Lorenzana heard more than tales. After Martin healed a wounded dog that had limped to the monastery, more beaten and starved dogs crawled to him from all over Lima. So Martin brought the dogs home, and they panted in the shade under his wonderful lemon tree. Not only that, the poor of Lima would come to him to be healed. Whether they were enslaved, whether they were he just would help everybody. And he also helped the brothers of the monastery, or the monastery, because he was healing everybody. He did not classify people as like, oh, you're rich, you're poor, you're this. He just universal brotherhood. The love of God belongs to everyone. So really, in that whole monastery, Martin was really the only true brother, personally, in my opinion, because he was actually living his truth. He was acting like God. He was healing people. He had personal power. He had discipline. He was dedicating his life to God. He had humility. He was a true priest, even though they did not, at the time, give him the title of priest. And that is why he gained the respect of everyone in that land. After 13 years, every soul in Lima knew who Martin was. Not a mongrel, not the son of a slave. He is a rose in the desert, they said. So Martin stood in the chapter room of the monastery and made his vows. Father Lorenzana leaned down and kissed him. Now you are our brother. Man, I don't even know what to think about this picture. I really don't. Because, I'm actually kind of torn. It's such a beautiful picture. But then at the same time, I'm like, why he have to go through all of that to get the most basic stuff? He's better than me. Me, I would have been like, deuces. I'm going to start my own order. Goodbye. I'll start my order in a little shack. I'll start my order on foot, barefoot, walking around the country. I don't need your grand monastery. God is everywhere. I can start it under a tree. But he has such dedication. He had such passion for this. He wanted to be in a position to help people. And he did. He helped. There was a story where he gave, he raised money for these women that were too poor to get married. He raised money for their dowry. He made a bargain with the mice to not go in the monastery. I'll feed you outside, but don't come into the monastery. It says, and the stories became more wonderful than before. Some said that Martin could appear in two places at the same time. I think that's biolocation. Others saw angels with lighted candles guiding him through the halls. Along the river Rimac, the lemon and orange trees he painted gave harvest all year long. And when he appeared with bread in the barrios or in the red-tiled mansions, it was always enough. So pretty. This is how it went for 45 years until one day Martin put on a new tunic and went to bed. So this is the part where he died, and I don't know if his mother was still alive, but they have his mother there. He was about 60 or 61. He died November 3rd. I don't remember, but it was November 3rd. And I believe that is also his, I don't know if it's his feast day or if that is his, or if his feast day is on his birthday. But apparently, it was a public funeral. Like, crowds came to see this man. Crowds came to see this man, which makes sense because he was a representative for the poor, for those who were persecuted because of their race and their background. He made a friend with everyone because he saw value in everyone. So the true hero of that monastery was Martin. And they should have at least followed his example. I don't know if they did or not, or if he changed the way that people interacted with people or saw them in a different light. But I really enjoyed this story because he remained consistent. He didn't switch up. He didn't act in rage, which he rightfully could have acted in rage. He rightfully could have called everybody out on anything. But I guess he saw this bigger picture. He just wanted to serve God by any means necessary. And that is what he did. He stayed in that place in order to be in a position to help those who truly needed it. At the end of the book, it says, when he died on November 3rd, 1639, he immediately became a figure of tremendous appeal for those in Peru who had redesigned themselves to a hopeless life of oppression. He was beatified in 1837 and canonized in May 1962, the first black saint in the Americas. When Pope John, I don't know which one that is, it's XX3. This is the 23rd? Is it? I don't know. The 23rd named him the patron saint of universal brotherhood. He soon also became the patron saint of interracial relations, social justice, those of mixed race, public education, and animal shelters, mainly because of, the dogs. I love this because you don't see, a lot of people don't, unless they're in, maybe in that belief system, you don't see often a lot of figures of colors in certain belief systems. Like, I do know of San Martin de Porres. I think there's another one, Saint Anthony of Padua. I don't know if that's him. But those are the only two ones I know of color, even though I am not Catholic or have Catholicism or anything. But those are the only two ones I know. That's why I felt a personal connection and remembered that book, because that was actually the first black saint that I had come across reading anything about Catholicism. That was he was the first one. I don't know if he's the only one. He's either the only one or one of two or maybe more that I do not know of. But if you are a person that is studying Catholicism and you want to teach people about it or children about it, and you want them to see representation in all aspects of life, whether it be religion or career, I think this would be a beautiful book for you. I found a prayer to San Martin de Porres that you can say on your rosary. I have never used a rosary, but I know that, there's certain prayers. There's was it novenas? I really don't know. But if you are one who uses a rosary or has the holy candles, you can say this prayer for his help. O glorious San Martin de Porres, great saint of the Dominican order, look down in mercy upon a poor soul who cries out to thee, and deign to come to my aid in this great need, that I may receive the consolation and succor of heaven in all my necessities, tribulations, and sufferings, but in particular, and then you put here, mention your intention. I thank thee, Saint Martin de Porres, for all the help that thou hast given me, both now and in the past, and I promise to be ever grateful to thee, and to make thee known to all who are in need of thine assistance. Amen. So, I highly recommend this book. to add to your collection, especially if you are starting a children's book collection of religious and spiritual diversity. Beautiful books, beautifully written, and beautiful illustrations. And if you would like to learn more about San Martin de Porres, I would just research online and find some more books about him, because he is a very interesting person to learn about. So have a wonderful evening, everyone, and happy reading.